warrants against these communities. So they said, you want this, we'll go some other place. So when we suddenly say, no, Shias are okay, the difference is, it's Sunni Wahhabism, there's a problem. What are we talking about? Syed Ahmad Khan's master stroke was to actually bring both these rival sects of Islam together under a single institution, which is the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, now known as the Aligarh
Muslim University.
He decided to have courses for both because he said, you guys keep fighting with each other, the Hindu will come up and he'll again take back state power. Our job is to ensure that the British man stays in this country so that both of us can collaborate to keep the Hindu out of state power. That's exactly the purpose of the movement, and he says as much. The good part of what I have done as a lawyer, and even if I say so myself, is I have not paraphrased. I have quoted.
Quoted everybody.
I have said, dekh lo, pad lo, soch lo.
Soch lo. That's what you've done. So, but you made a statement even on the 1857 mutiny, where largely the whole issue is that Hindus and Muslims came together to fight the British. But you make a case that the Muslims are largely under this Wahhabi movement. Came there because they realized that this is the time to strike back. And they were actually doing it so that they could bring back the rule of Islam in India.
That's why they wanted Bahadur Shah Zafar back. They're fighting for the percham of the Mughal flag. That's it. See, it's like this. The Wahhabis, effectively by that time, have a stronghold in the Northwest Frontier province. Okay. And of course, it wasn't a province then because it was made a province only in 1901. It was a Northwest Frontier. So, Sitana and all these places, the Swat Valley is where they have this. Malka and Sitna, which is where you effectively associate the Taliban with. And I've shown the roots between the Deoband
Taliban is also an offshoot of the Deoband. Now, it's also written that Mullah Omar was a student
of one of the seminaries,
seminaries of Deoband.
Okay. So, they have their, let's say, their stronghold there. So, what they decide to do is that when the mutiny so-called starts, now obviously the British Empire is busy trying to clamp it down because it's going on for 6 to 7 months, right until 1858. So, they use this period of confusion to attack them from the outside with the help of the Afghans. Okay. They are not on the same page as the mutineers, by the way, because they believe the mutineers are collaborating with Hindus, which is not what we want. And therefore, how the Wahhabis had a problem with the mutineers want the revival of the Mughal Empire. The Hindus think that both of us are fighting for freedom from the British. And we don't realize what's exactly happening until it comes to a point where there are, let's say, sporadic fights between the two factions during the course of the mutiny. This R.C. Majumdar captures it brilliantly. It hasn't received the kind of exposition that I thought it should have. Then I thought it's not good to actually cite only one author. So I went through Qiyamuddin Ahmad's book. So both of them agree that the Wahhabis were not fighting against the colonizer, they were fighting for revival. Similarly, there are portions where they agree that the Muslim mutineers were looking for revival of Islam because they had already given the fatwa for jihad. Now, the moment you call for fatwa and you call for jihad, you are not fighting for a secular purpose anymore. That's exactly where Syed Ahmad Khan comes in. He tries to defend all the parties who are Muslim in nature, and he blames the mutiny entirely on the Hindus. He says the mutiny was caused by two people, Ram Deen and Mata Deen. This is his way of referring to Hindus.
So that's his reference to Hindus. Now, we've got limited time, lots of ground to cover, but two specific questions I'll come to. You talk about the Christian Reformation movement and you also talk about the Muslim Reformation aspect. And then you say that somewhere they are all connected towards just converting or attacking the civilizational ethos and changing perhaps the DNA of Bharat.
Right. See, the thing is, what translates to Reformation in Islam and Christianity may be different. But it always translates to terrible period for non-Muslims and non-Christians. That much is clear. Because Islamist Reformation movement says, go back to the basics. And the moment you go back to the basics, we have had hell. And when it comes to Christianity, their Reformation simply says, I will not accept the monopoly of the church over my religion. And therefore, we should be allowed, specifically the Catholic Church, and therefore we must be allowed to create multiple denominations. But then it translates to competitive Christianity and competitive evangelization. And therefore, the moment it translates to competitive evangelization, you're looking for fresh areas to convert. Harvesting souls. Therefore, the net result, you can keep reforming till the cows come home, but it effectively means we are going to have hell.
So that's the impact on India, because both sides are, let's say, both these forces.
Non-Christian, non-Islamic civilization is not exactly going to be treated properly the moment either of these mindsets think of a reformation.
Final two questions. One is the Sedition Act 124A. This started somewhere around 1919, if I remember correctly, or
Wahhabi period, 1863.
1863 itself.
Yes.
Huh.
So every time we have a discussion on sedition and popular discussions, we are being told this was for Gandhi, this was for Patel. No,
No, it was not.
Gandhi was not the enemy of the British Empire. They clearly saw him as a friend. For the better part of it. Okay, and they saw him as a moderate. Although he thought of himself as the extremist of that particular period, he was the Manasputra of Gokhale.
Gokhale.
Okay, who was the staunch moderate, textbook moderate. This was not for us. Because the Congress was desperate to prove its non-seditious nature in every resolution. So why would you need sedition law against them? Not needed. The extremists such as Tilak and everybody else were the ones who ultimately did this. But the obvious reason, the historically recorded reason is this was to curb the Wahhabi movement. So if you read the language of section 124A and you look at the parliamentary debates around that particular period as to what are the activities they wanted, you will realize that every limb of section 24A is referred to there, saying or this, indoctrination. Then let's say collection of funds. So anything which is aimed in a particular direction, which is to initiate war against the king or the queen. See, prior to section 124A, you had section 121,
correct,
which is for waging war against the king or the queen. When you already had that, why did you need 124A? Because it's not just the final act of waging the war. Every step that leads towards it, from financing to indoctrination, needs to be curbed. That's why the provision came about.
My final question, in contemporary times, are you worried about what's happening in India currently and what the disposition's approach is?
Right.
Is there a worry for you that what the Congress did with Khilafat back in 1920s, the BJP could be doing today?
I've been fairly unabashed about the fact that the book is not an archival exercise in analyzing the past. It is to see if the past continues to be relevant. Unfortunately, so it is. And therefore, I've consciously made this responsible statement that we are living in the age of Khilafat 2.0. My only concern is perhaps we shouldn't repeat the mistakes of the past. Because 23 years from the end of the Khilafat movement in December 1924 led to 1946 and 47, partition of Bharat. We don't want that again. We have had enough of partition. We don't want more bloodshed, at least as far as the people of, let's say, the native faith systems of this country are concerned. We have seen enough. So my only exhortation and hope is, let's not operate under a savior complex where we believe that the failed methods of the past will somehow result in new outcomes and successful outcomes just because it's a change in dramatis personae. Makes no difference. And I've also said that Congress is like a pretatma. The DNA moves from body to body. Now, which is the body that is currently possessed of this particular spirit and which needs to be exorcised? I'll leave it to the audience's imagination.
Well, you said without saying it, and there is more in this. Is there a solution? What are the ways out? What we need to do? All of that is mentioned in the book. But one thing that he says is that we've got to do it together. 1%, 2% cannot do it. As a civilization, as a collective, as Bharat, we need to do it. Jai Sai Deepak, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Good evening, this is Brastax. I'm Zakir Jacob. It's official now. The fight for the next Congress president is going to be between Mallikarjun Kharge and Shashi Tharoor. Now, one is seen as the establishment candidate or the one who has the quote-unquote family's blessings. The other is seen as a bit of a rebel candidate, or the so-called G23 candidate. The fundamental question is this, that with Mr. Kharge, the front-runner, and the establishment candidate, can this election be seen as free and fair because he is seen as someone who has been endorsed by the family, even though they may not have explicitly said so. But every congressman and congresswoman out of those 9,000 plus delegates know who has the blessings of the family. Is this going to be a generational shift? An 80-year-old Mallikarjun Kharge as Congress president, is he the one who is going to take on this election-winning juggernaut of Modi-Shah combined called the BJP? Ultimately, if the aim of this election was a clean break from the Gandhi family, a clean break from the so-called hold of the Gandhi family, then does Mr. Kharge's candidature make that case, or does it only accentuate suspicions that folks have always had? But first, the story so far.
It's the most expected twist in the race for Congress's next president. There won't be a Gandhi in the top post for the first time in more than 20 years, but the Parivar has made sure their man is in the running. Mallikarjun Kharge, leader of opposition in the Rajya Sabha and a through and through Gandhi loyalist, filed his nomination today.
मुझे जो सहकार मिला उनको, उसलिए उनका फिर एक बार मैं आभारी हूं। कांग्रेस पार्टी के जो उसूल हैं, जो आइडियोलॉजी है, उस आइडियोलॉजी के साथ मैं बचपन से जुड़ा हूं।
From the looks of it, Congress ka haath is with Kharge. Apart from getting the Gandhi's blessings, Kharge walked into the AICC with signatures of 30 proposers who were some of the most prominent names in the party, including Rajasthan Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot, who was the first choice of the Gandhis for the top post up until his rebellion last week. Another proposer was Digvijay Singh, who up until the morning of the nomination had declared that he too was in the race.
उनसे मैंने पूछा था कि आप अगर फॉर्म भर रहे हो तो मैं नहीं भरूंगा। उनका इरादा है फॉर्म भरने का, तो मैंने कहा कि ठीक है, मैं आपका प्रस्तावक बनूंगा।
Kharge will be going up against Shashi Tharoor, a three-time member of parliament and a former union minister. Unlike Kharge, Tharoor wasn't flanked by the who's who of Congress when he filed his nomination papers.
I was not prepared for the extraordinarily enthusiastic collection of Congress workers. I have a vision for the Congress, for the internal reorganization of the Congress, which I will be sending to every one of the 9,100 and odd delegates.
A Gandhi loyalist versus a member of the G23. Are the odds stacked against Shashi Tharoor?
Kharge ji will be elected. In fact, my appeal is that he should be elected unanimously.
Okay, you want Mr. Tharoor to be withdrawing from the contest?
I think it would be in the fitness of things.
Is this a democratic election to lead a party that is going through its worst ever crisis, or just a friendly fight? And at the end of the day, will the next Congress chief simply be a proxy of the Gandhi family?
All right, let's open this up to our panelists. Full panel joining us on the talking point this evening. Sanju Verma is national spokesperson of the BJP. Supriya Srinath, spokesperson of the Congress Party. Sanjeev Srivastava, Srinath journalist. Rashid Kidwai, author and journalist who's been tracking the Congress for a number of years. Adbat Akala, author and political analyst, also joining us. Supriya, let me start with you first. Till this morning, when Mr. Kharge's name got thrown in the ring, it was seen and believed to be an election where the Congress first family, as it were, did not have a skin in the game. But now that Mr. Kharge is the quote-unquote official candidate or the establishment candidate, the person who has the quote-unquote family's blessings, doesn't it defeat the whole purpose of having this election? That is, that there will be a clean break from any kind of influence by the Gandhi family as to who the next Congress president will be.
I think the opposition and perhaps some sections of the media need to make up their mind. What all are you going to attack? You started off with, oh my God, it can never go out of the Gandhi family. Rahul Gandhi is going to be the president. Now it is going to be a non-Gandhi president being done through an electoral process. 9,000 elected delegates will vote. You have a problem with that. I am very fond of Shashi Tharoor. I am equally fond of Mr. Kharge, and I am also very fond of KN Tripathi, the third candidate in the fray that nobody is talking about. He's been a minister in the Jharkhand government, and here he is. He's also filed a nomination. The trouble is that when we start chasing a narrative, we forget the reality. These are the pictures. Here's Mr. Kharge filing his nomination. Here's Dr. Tharoor filing his nomination. And here, of course, is Mr. Tripathi filing his nomination. In the last 72 to 96 odd hours, presidents have been appointed for 3 parties in this country, including the Bharatiya Janata Party, the RJD and the Samajwadi Party. We've seen one-line flash on news channels and on wire agencies, and that's how presidents are being nominated or perhaps being given more terms. So the people who have nothing to do with the electoral process in their party are the last ones who should be asking us questions.
Okay.
The people who kept talking about some imaginary G23, I also want to point out here, I've got 3 nomination set of papers for Mr. Kharge, and I want to point out Manish Tiwari, Anand Sharma ji, Mukul Vasnik ji, Prithviraj Chavan ji. I mean, all these people have signed these papers, including Digvijay Singh ji and Gehlot ji. So my trouble with this commentary, Zaka, really is, make up your mind.
One second. I was very clear. I was very clear in my mind, and I think Sanjeev was on the show last night, Rashid was on the show, I think Advaita also, I spoke to her yesterday evening. I was very clear in my mind till last evening that if it's going to be a Digvijay Singh versus Shashi Tharoor fight, then yes, the first family has quote-unquote walked the talk that they don't have a skin in this game, they don't have a preferred candidate. But things changed dramatically this morning when Mr. Kharge's name got floated and Mr. Digvijay Singh then goes to his residence and says, I'm withdrawing my candidature. I mean, are you seriously suggesting, Supriya Srinath, that the 9,000 delegates who will vote the next president of your party do not know who is the official candidate and who is the so-called rebel?
I don't know who your sources are. I don't know who your reporters are talking to. But I am one of the elected delegates, unlike people who want to come and smirk and smile and laugh here, because they don't even elect their president, they nominate. So they should hold their horses. 9-time MLA, 2-time Lok Sabha MP, the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha, has been Central Minister for Railways and for Labour, has been a trade unionist, started his politics in 1969. None of the Gandhis have signed his candidature. There were some people in the party who were talking to him. Digvijay Singh is a seasoned politician, a 2-time elected chief minister. He's a very mature politician. He wanted this to be a friendly contest, but when Mr. Kharge came in, he's a senior member of the party. He decided to withdraw his candidature. He was neither asked to contest,
he never said any of that last night.
I think it's in the fate of things.
Anyway, I'll ask Sanju Verma the question that the question that I'm not. Nobody is running down anybody. No. Please don't get me wrong. Please don't get me wrong. Let me just take 10 seconds to say what I'm saying. Please don't get me wrong. Nobody is running him down. Like you said, he's been LOP in the Lok Sabha, he's been LOP in the Rajya Sabha. Great candidate. I don't have a problem, but I don't think he's going to fix any of your issues. But let me ask Sanju Verma one second. Let me ask Sanju Verma the question you asked. It's a valid question. In the last few days, we've heard reports of Mr. Nadda, your president, Sanju Verma ji, getting a second term. The question that Supriya and other Congress folks are asking is, where is the election? Mr. Nadda was not elected the first time. He's not elected the second time. You have a selection. So why are you picking holes in an election that the Congress party is having?
Question as well.
Sanju Verma, Sanju Verma, I've asked her the question. Let her respond,
Can you ask Supriya Srinath to stop shouting and screaming, because I did not heckle her and I need my time, Zata, without interruptions, because there was a 10-minute long speech by the Congress panelist and she made no sense. First things first, let me be very clear. Who the Congress chooses as its next president, really is an internal matter of the Congress. But anyone with an iota of common sense, anyone with a basic understanding of Indian polity knows that whether it is Shashi Tharoor or whether it is Mallikarjun Kharge or whether it is K.N. Tripathi for that matter, the fact of the matter is that the reins of the Congress party are finally controlled by a private limited company called the Indian National Congress. This private limited company has 4 people: Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Vadra and Damadji Robert Vadra. They make all the bona fide or mala fide decisions, as it were. So let's not fool ourselves into believing that the Congress finally believes in electoral or internal democracy. And I will just corroborate what I'm saying with 2 important facts. Do you remember the fact that between 1996 and 1998, Sitaram Kesri, between 1996 and 1998, Sitaram Kesri was the Congress president. He was eventually unceremoniously removed. And there have been 12 Congress presidents in the last 100-odd years, out of which none of them ever made it to their full term. Imagine, in its 137-year-old history, the Congress barely had 12, non-Gandhis as Congress presidents who never completed a full term. And you had sycophants like Devkant Barua, who in the mid-70s said India is Indira and Indira is India.
All right.
And I just want to say that, no, please, Zaka, let me finish. The same philosophy of Devkant Barua holds good even today. The Congress likes to believe India is Sonia and Sonia is India. Unfortunately, the Congress is the proverbial ostrich with its head in the sand, refusing to stare at reality. That is precisely the reason they are
the reality
vanquished.
is that this country has changed since 2014. It's a
Zaka,
different.
you
It's a
gave
one second.
long intervention to the Congress. Let me finish.
One second.
I take 30 seconds.
One second, ma'am. One second. We have 30 minutes in the debate. I've got 3 other guests to go to as well. Please allow me. See, Sanjuji, I have great respect for you, but please allow me to do my show the way I want to do my show. I've given you time. Let me go to my third guest. 3 guests have been very patiently waiting. Let us not please make it about 30 seconds that I've taken off your time. If I have, then I'm sorry. I seek your forgiveness. I'm going to Rashid Kidwai. Please have Rashid Kidwai on the screen. And Rashid Kidwai, you were on the show with me last night. And we were all saying that if it's going to be a Digvijay versus Shashi Tharoor fight, absolutely bring it on. Because I don't think the Gandhi family, by any stretch of the imagination, would have been perceived to be close to either of these 2 candidates. Please tell us and help our viewers understand what happened between last night and this morning that suddenly the whole game changed. Here you have a familiar candidate, a family-backed candidate throwing his hat in the ring on the very last day, on the last day of filing nominations, and one of the 2 candidates who had already filed or was planning to file withdrawing his nomination. I mean, something should have happened in the last 6, 7, 10 hours until this morning for that dramatic change to happen.
Absolutely, Zaka. If Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge had such excellent credentials to be the Congress president, why he was not brought in the first place?
Exactly.
I mean, even ahead of Ashok Gehlot.
Exactly.
Now, second,
you hit the nail on the head.
See, Zaka, what happened in last 24 hours or longer is a story of palace intrigue. Remember, the Congress may be losing elections and etc., but they know the art of politicking. There were many kind of caste considerations, lobbies, etc., that worked against Mr. Digvijay Singh, and his name was removed. And I'm tempted to use that word, palace intrigue actually that took place. And that's how we are in this situation. But all is not lost. In the sense, there's a litmus test for Gandhis. Gandhis, if they're true to what Rahul Gandhi has been saying, they can always allow in the sense they can make a public pronouncement to say that there be a conscience vote. Let every PCC delegate use his or her wisdom to select between the two.
Rashid, that would have been absolutely par for course, and everybody would have believed that had it been the situation as of last night. But now with Mr. Kharge's nomination and the manner of his nomination, are you seriously telling me, and I asked this to Supriya, and I'm asking this to all congressmen and women, and I'm asking you as well, Rashid, after having watched the party for the last 40 years, are you seriously suggesting that the 9,000 delegates don't know who is the candidate, who is the chosen one, who has the blessings?
No, that is very true. But that is what I'm saying. You see, Rahul Gandhi has a task to prove Mr. Zaka Jacob wrong. If he comes on record,
I'm a very, very small, person. I don't think he needs to prove me right or wrong. But please go on.
You reflect a popular opinion. I'm saying that he has a duty and he has a chance to prove this wrong. See, unless the Congress changes itself, and we can go on saying whether the Congress delegates should change or the leaders. But if Gandhi's, because this comparison with 1997 or 1999, presidential election is very different. There, Sitaram Kesari was Congress president, and so was Sonia Gandhi. Here, Gandhi seemingly, and they are not stakeholders. They are not. It's at best, Mr. Kharge can be described as a proxy candidate. So if they allow,
but you are validating my point. If he's a proxy candidate, then how can you say that the Gandhis don't have a skin in the game? That's exactly what I'm saying. And let me be very, very clear. The reason why Digvijay Singh stepped down, and I always believed that Digvijay Singh was a bit of a smokescreen candidate, if you will. He was just testing the waters to see if any more quote-unquote further loyalists would, throw their hat in the ring. And when he got the sense that Mr. Kharge is going to, he withdrew his nomination. Advaita Kala, the other big aspect is, forget about, taking on Modi Shah, that is a a different ball game altogether. Maybe an 80-year-old Mr. Kharge can. I don't know. Maybe he can. I wish him well. Like I said in the previous show as well, in the interest of Indian democracy, we need a strong opposition. And whether we like it or not, the Congress is the only national alternative. But the other big missed opportunity here is this whole process was supposed to be about a generational change, right? The old guard versus the new guard. You look at even the two candidates. They literally represent old guard versus new guard. Yes, Mr. Tharoor may not be close to Rahul Gandhi, but he certainly, no one calls him the old guard in the Congress party. Whereas Mr. Kharge epitomizes the old guard in the Congress party. How can an 80-year-old gentleman possibly be at the helm of a generational transformation? Makes no sense.
On the face of it, it doesn't. I would still go with the logic that, this is Congress's internal matter and they can choose for themselves, of course, who is best suited to lead them. I think the bigger question here is that, of course, this is part of the issue is this is an internal Congress party election, etc., and that needs to take place as per what their constitution is, what their agreement is, or their pact is within their party. The other part is their conversation with the public. Now, they have been hit very hard in the last couple of years, especially about the dynastic control of the party and there being no internal democracy. And I think this was a golden opportunity to put forward to the public who are viewing this election with a lot of interest. I would say there's more interest because of all the leaks and because of all the scandals in this election than there is in actually the Bharat Jodo Yatra. So that's a whole messaging issue that they have, which is another conversation. But sticking with this itself, I think this was an opportunity to say that we can have a free and fair election. What's happened now is that you have somebody like Mr. Kharge, who definitely has his advantages, has his pluses and his minuses, but is very clearly seen as someone who is controlled by the Gandhis. Now, one way to get out of this conundrum would be for the Gandhis to come forward and say expressly that this is not their candidate, because that is what is the signaling that is going out to the public as well as to the delegates, as well as in commentary that is coming from the Congress, because they are just commenting all the time, which is why we also like the Congress, because no one gives you drama like the Congress. And what Rashid said about palace intrigue, I mean, no one knows it better than him. So all of this is going on simultaneously, but what's happening is that the process itself is just fueling the skepticism that already existed. Okay. And I don't think that that's serving them in any possible way. So whoever becomes president, of course, we'll find out soon enough. But will he have credibility in the eyes of the public? With what's going on with Digvijay Singh coming in and saying, I met him, but he told me he wasn't going to be standing. But then I found out through the media that he was. I mean, all of these sound bites coming together just makes it all seem very convoluted. And I don't think anyone's taking it very seriously, apart from just entertainment value.
I also want to ask Sanjeev Srivastava, the other problem, this could likely be an electoral problem for the Congress party, is that both Mr. Kharge and Mr. Tharoor come from southern India, and nothing wrong with that. I mean, I come from South India, so I don't find that a problem. The only problem is the electoral math. In southern India, you have 100, maybe 120 seats at best. The remaining 300 seats are from northern India, western India, and eastern India, and neither of these two candidates have any appeal in the Hindi heartland states. I mean, let's look at this with very cold logic. In 2024, if the Congress has to become the fulcrum of the opposition, if the Congress is going to stand a chance against the BJP, it has to take on the BJP and, compete with it for seats and for vote share in states where it's a direct fight between Congress and BJP. So you have Gujarat, you have Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Uttarakhand, a whole host of states. Unfortunately, neither Mr. Kharge nor Mr. Tharoor are going to have any appeal in any of those states.
Okay, so very quickly, Zaka. First thing, I would have wanted to, but I was not on your show yesterday. I was there day before.
Sure.
So on the show I was yesterday, I'm not at all surprised by Mr. Kharge's or truly some other candidate's name coming out. Okay. Having said that, let's take one by one. Yes, a cowbelt Hindi-speaking area, northern Indian candidate would have been ideally better. And let's not forget that Mr. Kharge is an afterthought. the original candidate was supposed to be Mr. Ashok Gehlot.
Correct.
As things transpired during the last 3, 4, 5 days, it so happened that he ruled himself out of the contest yesterday. And so a candidate had to be thought about, because a Digvijay Singh Shashi Tharoor contest would have had its own implications. You know, with all respects to both those candidates, Mr. Tharoor, great man, Mr. Digvijay Singh, I am a nobody to really compliment him on his political background, sagacity. But remember, he has been too polarizing and virtually would have played into BJP's hands. They just had to play his tapes of yesteryears. So there was a need of a candidate, and a candidate did come up. Yesterday, there were 3 names doing the rounds: Meera Kumar, Mukul Vasnik, and Kharge Saab. Kharge Saab being the senior most, he has come. Now he ticks all the right boxes. He has experience, he has stature. There is an election in Karnataka. And with due respect, Zaka, to the Congress party, their best bet right now is south of Vindhyas. In the Hindi heartland and in states where they are pitched in a direct battle with the BJP, whether it's Rajasthan, MP, or Uttarakhand, let's not even begin to talk about UP. So they have suffered major losses, and as we speak today, things may change tomorrow onwards. They don't look like in a position to really greatly improve their performance from there. So while it's important to have a North Indian Hindi-speaking face, maybe they have done their own maths and thought about that Southern Indian face at this juncture with Karnataka elections next year, maybe a better, or it's just lack of choices which made them decide in Mr. Kharge's name. And last point, I know that the presidential election, whoever, Congress Gandhis are damned. If they contested, it would have been damn them. They are never leaving the post. If they don't contest, it's a proxy, shadow, faceless, mukhota candidate. They can't help it. But Mr. Jairam Ramesh is very an intelligent man. But he shouldn't have said the statement he made yesterday or this morning, that this presidential election is a sideshow and the real show is Bharat Jodo Yatra. What does he mean? He is undermining his own Congress president's election. And undermining the whole process. I didn't expect somebody as intelligent and erudite as him, in whatever context. It was an open and shut statement. You can't interpret it in any other way. He said this is a sideshow.
I totally agree with you. I mean, you can't possibly justify that the election of your next party president is a sideshow, Supriya Srinath, because if it is, then what's the point? Why are you doing it, right? And the second one, again, the point that Sanjeev made, Mr. Kharge was not your plan A candidate. The plan A candidate was Mr. Gehlot. And that, I know, I don't want to go back into the fiasco that happened in Rajasthan, but let's be blunt to our viewers. Our viewers are smart to figure this out. Mr. Kharge is your plan B candidate, not your plan A candidate.
So it's interesting, there are some things that have been said on the show, and I think I would want to answer those before I answer your direct question. There was something said about drama in the Congress. Drama and democracy have a lot of common alphabets. Thank God for the drama and the democracy in the Congress, because to the BJP, our ruling party, there is a one-liner that says this man is going to continue as president for the next XX number of years. Forget about election. 1.5 people sit down in a room and make that selection. Thank God for the drama and the democracy that we offer. That's point number 1. Point number 2, and I think you've been saying this repeatedly, and I think one of the guests said it too, seemingly he is somebody's candidate, seemingly the top brass is supporting him. Now, seemingly you are owned by a corporate, but I believe you are an independent journalist. So what I see may not be the reality. None of the Gandhis have been an approver for him, have been a proposer for him. I think it's very simply put there. I think somebody's having a fit attack here. You might want to find out what's happening. And I also think the Bharat Jodo Yatra question that you put forward, I think that's a very important point. I want to answer that question head on. I think the Bharat Jodo Yatra,
she's insanely crazy. She never speaks on the topic. She gets downright abusive.
Ma'am, I'm coming to you right after this. Let Supriya finish, please. Ma'am, Sanju, please. Let her finish. I'll come to you in a minute exactly. Thank you. I'll come to you in a minute. Thank you. Supriya.
3,570 kilometers being walked on foot, 12 state, 2 union territories, and the kind of response we are getting from the people has rattled the BJP. So they will do all it takes to malign us, they will do all it takes to ridicule us, they will do all sorts of conspiracy theories. I think Jairam Ramesh is definitely right to an extent that the Bharat Jodo Yatra is a very important event. I don't think he's trying to downplay the presidency.
I don't know. Why
Nobody
do you
in
call
their
the
right
BJP if you don't
minds,
want to
being
give
a
us
Congress
time?
member, would be able to do that.
And then you
But
will
I
say,
really
Sanju
want
Verma,
to
this is not
say,
about 30
Bharat
seconds.
Jodo Yatra
All
is
right.
a
I don't
very
know why you call the
important
BJP if you
event
don't want to give
in
us
the,
time.
in the period of this history.
You're
Okay.
And I
allowing the
also
Congress
want
to
to say,
completely
have
monopolize the
some
debate
water,
and then you will
take a
accuse
BP
me that I'm
Okay.
fighting for my time.
Okay.
Take a BP
May I
medicine,
please?
All
have some
right,
water,
all
and
right,
then
Sanju
go.
Verma, you've been heckling
BP
and heckling and
medicine,
heckling, but
थोड़ी सी
go
BP
ahead,
medicine
go ahead,
दीजिए.
make your point. I'm giving you free, uninterrupted
Ask her to
airtime.
have
Go
some
ahead.
BP medicine. I worry
Yeah.
for her health. I worry
Yes,
for
yes,
her
No,
thank you
mental
so
all right,
much.
Supriya,
Ask
thank
her
you.
to have
Let
some
her make her
cold
point
water
now, please.
And BP medicine.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes, thank you, Supriya,
I'm
for being
worried
so
about a
concerned
fellow
about my health.
panelist.
Yes,
So
okay.
I'm very
Sanju
worried.
Verma, only
She
Sanju
really
Verma on
needs to
screen,
take
please. Thank you.
treatment.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Zaka, first and foremost, let me make it very clear. I have not been heckling. I waited for a full 12 minutes before I got my first intervention. I had barely spoken for 2 minutes and you cut me short. So please don't be uncharitable to me, because I do enjoy your shows tremendously and I love coming and having a good debate. Point number 2, and the most important point. Let's be very clear. This whole accusation about BJP selecting and not electing its presidents. Anyone who understands Indian polity, even a wee bit knows, nobody had a clue that Amit Shah would be replaced by JP Nadda, or that Rajnath Singh would find a successor in Amit Shah, or that Nitin Gadkari would find a successor in Rajnath Singh, or that LK Advani would find a successor again in Rajnath Singh. Because don't forget, Rajnath Singh and Amit Shah have had 2 terms each. So I'm saying that in politics, it's very important to have an element of surprise. And in BJP, you do not know till the last nth hour who is going to be the president, because the parliamentary board and the core committee takes all the decisions. I will quickly just end by saying 2 things. The fact that Jairam Ramesh called the entire election of the Congress president a sideshow, I think that shows, either callousness, ignorance, or simply, false bravado at undermining your own party's electoral process. Whatever be the case, it does not put either Jairam Ramesh in good light or the Congress. And I will end by quoting Rahul Gandhi. For once, Zaka, I agree with Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi said today, "Ye आंधी रुकने वाली नहीं है." Mr. Gandhi, you are right. आपने जो आंधी आपकी कांग्रेस में चल रही है, उस आंधी के चलते राजस्थान अंधकार में डूब गया है. आने वाले हफ्तों में छत्तीसगढ़ भी अंधकार में डूब जाएगा.
चलते देश अंधकार में डूब गया है.
इज रूल्ड बाय गद्दारी.
पहुंच गया है.
मैडम, शांत हो जाओ.
Okay, I'm left with no choice. I'm going to pull back from both the political spokespersons. Unfortunately, I'm left with no choice, so I'm going to pull back from both Supriya as well as Sanju Verma. Can I go to Rashid, please? And Rashid, I think one pertinent question, it may be of academic value, I don't know, but what on earth was that whole G23 experiment? Today, every one of those remaining G23 members, of course, Mr. Sibal has left and Mr. Azad has left, but every one of the remaining ones, from Mr. Hooda to Mr. Manish Tiwari to Anand Sharma, were all proposers of Mr. Kharge's name. So what was this whole G23 experiment about?
Well, the joke was that, G23 has become the G Huzuri type of thing. I think it's, again, I would go back. I think it's got to do with some kind of caste considerations, because since the morning or last night, I'd been hearing this, that, a certain caste has not been loyal to the, Congress or Congress leadership, and names of Chandrasekhar and VP Singh and several other names were mentioned. And I think that's where it becomes a little, problematic for the Congress. When Narasimha Rao had left the Congress or resigned, he had chosen Sitaram Kesi as a successor. And that time, it was said that that was Narasimha Rao's way of seeking revenge from the Congress, whatever Congress had done to him. So I just wonder, what is the purpose? Who's seeking revenge from the Congress now?
No. Look. Let's be very clear. I defer to your wisdom about the Congress Party, but I don't think Digvijay Singh's candidature got struck down by the High Command because of his caste. but perhaps because of his loyalty or his fickle nature. Maybe had this election happened in 2008 or 2010, maybe, Mr. Kharge would not have been the surprise candidate. But, this whole caste thing also brings me to the point that, again, I'm not taking anything away from what Mr. Kharge has achieved in his life. Of course, he's had a stellar and a very long political career, from ministership to leader of the opposition, so on and so forth. But this experiment of having a Dalit candidate, Advaita, the Congress party did that for electoral reasons, for whatever symbolic reasons in Punjab, in Mr. Channi. And look what happened. I mean, it's not like that could salvage the Congress's prospects in that state. Again, here, as Rashid said, the caste factor was perhaps an important one. It was a consideration in Mr. Kharge's candidature. But just for symbolic reasons, if you're going to do it, that's not going to give you electoral rewards.
But Zaka, that's if you're looking at the Congress president's position as someone who's going to be, drawing the votes. To be very honest, I mean, both candidates have had, political success and had long careers in politics. Shashi Tharoor, of course, has won 3 elections, Lok Sabha elections, and that can't be taken away from either of them. But are they going to be vote getters on a national scale? I don't think so. And I don't necessarily think that that's what the Congress is looking for necessarily either. Because if that was the case, then we would see a very different election and different candidates. I think what you have here, and this is, again, that's problematic, and I keep saying this because this is a conversation that the ailing party has to have with the public as well, even though it's an internal process that they're going through. And that is to restore some confidence in who's going to be leading and really in the office of the Congress president. So you have had very illustrious people, although it was a different Congress at that point of time, pre-independence, and we know the splits and the sort of takeover of the party by the dynasty subsequently. But certainly, I mean, there have been very illustrious, great people who have occupied that office. So I think, like what has been said about Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's prime ministership, wherein he was considered to be remote controlled. I think a similar kind of narrative is also being built around the Congress president's office, which is truly unfortunate for a party that is over 100 years old. And I think the Congress has to take this very seriously.
Here was
they
a
may
genuine
want to debate it in public, but within themselves, they have to introspect on where they're going.
Here was a genuine opportunity for the Congress party to actually wipe the slate clean. I'll give Sanjeev the final word. I have less than a minute to wrap up, Sanjeev. Do you think Mr. Kharge looks like he will be the winner? I mean, it's evident from the the people who were there to propose him. The message has clearly gone down the rank and file that he is the quote unquote chosen one. Do you believe, from whatever we've seen of his record in the center from 2014 onwards, his first as LOP in the Lok Sabha and then as LOP in the Rajya Sabha, Mr. Kharge is in a position to take on Modi Shah?
See, whoever becomes the president, the task of taking on Modi Shah will squarely fall on Rahul Gandhi. We cannot really act as if we are kind of not knowing what the true score is. He is the main protagonist on the Congress side, and Rahul Gandhi is taking on. So that I think the importance of Kharge Saab, what we don't realize is that while it ticks all the boxes, right, experience, stature, background, whatever, it's also important to note that he at least will not be the reason for any fresh controversy, which a Digvijay Singh ji or a Tharoor Saab could have been. And I, with all respects to both of them. So there will be no transformational change. Nobody is expecting transformational change. So he is the best candidate at this time. And just one more very quick point, Zaka. When I said about Mr. Jairam Ramesh, I don't agree with Sanju ji saying that he's trying to undermine the thing. And I agree with Supriya also to the point that the main show right now is Bharat Jodo. But as the chief of communications wing, he should choose his words with more care, so there's no room left for misinterpretation.
I got to wrap up, Sanjeev. I'm really out of time, but thank you very much. Despite the sometimes acrimonious nature of these debates, we'll leave it at that. Like I said, this was a great opportunity for the Congress party to turn a page or to try and reflect a new Congress party. Whether or not that will be achieved through the candidature of these two individuals and whoever goes on to win, We'll have to wait and see. But I also have a very special guest from the Congress party, somebody, by the way, who was one of the proposers of Mr. Kharge's name. Abhishek Manu Singhvi is a senior Congress leader, Rajya Sabha MP, and of course, senior lawyer in the Supreme Court. First things first, we saw the kind of support that Mr. Kharge got, as many as 30 people, including yourself, as the proposers of his name. Is he the candidate, and this is the impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, the impression that's going around is he is the candidate who has the blessings of the family. He's the chosen one. He is the establishment candidate.
Zaka, let me just say first and foremost, there are basically three takeaways, and then I'll answer your question. The first and important takeaway is that we are having, after a long while, and unlike many, many other parties, an open, fair, transparent election. I don't know how many parties in India can claim to do that, political parties. Number two, and this is even more astonishing, despite overwhelming support, no Gandhi is standing for it.
Okay.
No one. Number three, there was some negativity in a few days ago, Kyiv, Rajasthan. That is now all behind us. So we have now a regular election. And that has nothing to do with what happened in Rajasthan now anymore. Having said these three things, the media likes to say what you just said, and I know it's meant not as your own view, but as a manner of eliciting or provoking. Tell me one thing. Is anybody inhibited from standing? If I want, is there the slightest pressure on me not to stand? Or for that matter, if you are a congressman? What is this whole word about official candidate? Is Shashi Tharoor not an official congressman? Does he not occupy a senior position in Lok Sabha?
Okay.
Then he should have been shooed away. He should have been excluded. There is no question of official candidate. Yes, you have people who are proposed by, for example, the 10 of us, my name is there. You have people proposing Shashi Tharoor. And tomorrow, for voting, let me be very clear, nobody is inhibited from voting.
Okay.
This way or that way.
So tell me.
I think this is just an over-romanticized version.
One of the things that was supposedly done through this election, and the aim of this election, was a generational change, if you will. Please tell me, the last full-time president you had was Rahul Gandhi. He's 50 years old as of today. Mr. Kharge is 80 years old. What sort of a generational transformation is this, that an 80-year-old takes over from a 50-year-old?
First and foremost, there are two candidates. We don't know who will win. So one of them is younger than the other. Okay. Second, if you are free and fair to stand, and suppose I force you to stand because you are younger, then you will have the same accusation. I mean, younger people have not stood. This is their choice. And today, actually, you are questioning the democratic process by saying that, look, why is X and Y not elected? Why does Z not stand? Why does A not stand as mid-age? These are choices which are individual. How can, on the contrary, the very fact that, people have stood or not stood shows the freedom of it.
Okay.
Mr. Kharge is a senior politician. Mr. Shashi Tharoor is also not that young, but definitely younger. And I think you have two contestants. You can't force a third contest or a fourth contest.
Okay, we'll see. As they say in love and war, may the best man win. I'll leave it at that. Dr. Singhvi, as always, a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, right on the other side, it's a huge international story. President Vladimir Putin of Russia has officially announced the annexation of 4 regions that belong to Ukraine. And this is likely to send the war into a more decisive phase. What may that look like? We'll talk about that right on the other side of this quick.
The first blast was in an empty bus parked near a petrol pump. Locals claim the bus used to be parked at the spot daily. After 6 to 7 hours, another blast went off in a bus parked at a stand. The roof and the back of the bus were blown away by the blast. 2 people were injured in one of these blasts. Preliminary investigations suggest that these were IED blasts.
जो छत है यहाँ से आईडी ब्लास्ट हुआ है, इसकी हालत देखिए, जो छत है उसके ऊपर खच्चे उड़ गए, पूरा शदीद तौर पर सारी जगहों पे आप देख सकते हैं इस बस को डैमेज पहुंचा है।
A team from the National Investigation Agency reached Udhampur district to probe the mysterious blasts.
US Vice President Kamala Harris visited the demilitarized zone that divides both the Koreas. This comes a day after North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles off its east coast. Harris condemned Pyongyang's actions and underscored that the United States is committed to defending South Korea. Hurricane Ian has crossed Florida, but it's left behind a trail of destruction.
It is one of the most dangerous storms to hit the US in years. It brought catastrophic storm surges, wind and flooding. When Hurricane Ian made landfall, it smashed into Florida coast with the wind speed of up to 241 kilometers an hour. Roofs were blown off, floodwaters surged inland and trees ripped out of the ground. $2.4 million homes and businesses in Florida were left without power. The Category 4 hurricane was later downgraded to a tropical storm, and people have been urged to stay put in shelters.
Queen Elizabeth's death certificate states that the 96-year-old died of old age. The document was signed by her daughter, Princess Anne. Britain's longest reigning monarch died at her Balmoral estate in Scotland on the 8th of September, around 3.5 hours before the news was announced to the world. Vladimir Putin's partial mobilization orders have triggered massive traffic jams at the Russia-Georgia border.
The mass exodus of men, either alone or with their families, began on the 21st of September, shortly after Putin's address to the nation. It has only been growing since then, with airline tickets mostly sold out or completely unaffordable. Russian men filled up their cars and joined the long lines snaking on roads towards the borders. According to the government of Georgia, more than 53,000 Russians have entered the country since last week. There is rising fear of travel bans and possible border closures, with reports of some men already being turned away by Russian bodyguards. Putin announced a partial mobilization to add at least 300,000 troops to its forces in Ukraine. In Russia, almost every man is considered a reservist until the age of 65. Having personal combat or military service experience is the main criterion in the call-up.
All right, Russia will formally annex 4 Ukrainian territories Friday. The signing ceremony will take place in the Kremlin. 4 Ukrainian regions which have been occupied by the Russian army, which includes Lugansk, Donetsk, Kherson and Zaporizhzhia. Moscow has organized referendums in all these 4 regions. This move comes 8 years after Moscow annexed Crimea. It's a big blow. Indian pacer Jasprit Bumrah has been ruled out for the T20 World Cup after he complained of back pain. Bumrah did not play the first T20 against South Africa on Wednesday. Bumrah travelled to Bengaluru to undergo fresh scans on his back. After Team India's big win on Wednesday, fans got a glimpse of Virat Kohli's video call with wife Anushka Sharma. We'll leave you with A lawyer tried to run over a woman traffic constable near Mumbai, and this is what ensued.
The constable had seized the scooter of an advocate for alleged violation of traffic rules. The scooter was kept in a go-down meant for seized vehicles for further legal procedures. But the lawyer landed up at the go-down to take away the two-wheeler. When the cop tried to stop the lawyer from exiting the building, he knocked her down with the scooter and tried to flee. He even tried to assault some men who came and confronted him. The lawyer was arrested based on the cop's complaint. The woman cop suffered injuries on her leg and hands from the fall.
Prime Minister Modi is on a two-day visit to his home state Gujarat. He led a grand 2.5-kilometer-long roadshow in Surat and then went to Bhavnagar to launch a slew of development projects. Gujarat is going to polls later this year and the ruling BJP is leaving no stone unturned to ensure that it retains power. Later in the evening, Prime Minister Modi went to Ahmedabad. He declared open the 36th edition of the National Games. Welcome back. Our second debate tonight. Russia has now laid claim to more than 20% of Ukrainian territory, 8 years after the annexation of Crimea. Vladimir Putin today signed treaties to annex 4 Ukrainian regions at a grand ceremony that happened in the Kremlin. World leaders have promptly condemned the move, and the Ukrainian president, Mr. Zelensky, has declared that there is no room for negotiation.
Благодарю вас, пожалуйста. Хорошо. Уважаемые граждане России, это десантник Нурмагомед.
All right, on the talking point, Fred Wire is a Russia expert. He's a Russia correspondent of the Christian Science Monitor. Raymond Vikri is Senior Associate at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. And Ambassador Anil Triguniath, former diplomat, joining us. Ambassador, let me start with you first. Why should the rest of the world accept this? I mean, this is, as for all practical purposes, a land grab exercise after a sham referendum.
Well, the world is not accepting it, that we know it already. But does it matter to Putin? No. He doesn't care at this stage. He has obtained whatever purpose he thought was going to be served by annexing these 4 regions, which he had done earlier, like Crimea. So in a way, he has formalized his annexation of the Russian-speaking part into Russia. Most importantly, today's exercise was targeted at the Russian audiences, basically for the domestic purpose. Essentially, he was not conciliatory at all, and in fact, rather confrontational with the West, because he said that this deception that has, or deceit and deception that with regard to expansion of NATO that the Americans have perpetrated all along is something that he accused them of. So therefore, he doesn't care whether the world accepts it or does not accept it. He feels that self-determination is a part of the UN Charter, and that's why they want to go ahead. But at the moment, I think, in order to salvage his reputation as well as to continue to carry on is what he's trying to do.
Fred Wire, as the ambassador said, Putin doesn't really care about international backlash. But here's the thing. There has been negative backlash in the last few weeks, right after the successes in the blitzkrieg that the Ukrainians had around Kharkiv, after which he announced this partial draft last week, and we've seen images of young Russians trying to flee the country. Is this an attempt to try and change that negative narrative he's been facing for the last few days and weeks now?
Well, maybe, but I think it's much. I think there's a big shift occurring in nations are going to prosecute war, and this referendums and hasty annexation is part of that. I mean, it is an extraordinary thing to annex territories to hold these referendums. Well, they're still contested on the battlefield. I mean, these are active war zones, all 4 of these regions, and that signals something. And I'm not sure that it's the desperation some commentators are saying, because the partial mobilization, or the mobilization, if that's what it is working. I mean, yes, we see these scenes, people crowding around border exits and buying tickets, but we also see scenes of voinkomats, you know, the recruitment centers filled with people coming in and answering the call up. I don't think Russia is on its last leg, the way some people are saying. I'm not advocating this, I'm just observing that the winter is coming. Russia will train up these troops and have more or less double its forces in Ukraine, and also probably change their tactics, go after infrastructure much more. I think that this is part of a plan to do the war after it faltered.
All right, so this is to try and regain some of the initiative, to try and change this war into a more decisive phase. Raymond Vickery, though, the question is the West's response so far up until today has been to try and arm the Ukrainians. There's a steady stream of weapons that's coming into Ukraine, but not directly get involved with boots on the ground. That's not going to change the course of this war. Putin is actively trying to change the course of this war, take it to some kind of a decisive conclusion. But in this case, with the West's response so far, it's only going to be more of the same.
Well, thanks very much for having me. I think that what Russia has done now is an exercise just in raw imperialism. It's the worst violation of the UN Charter since its founding. I was very happy to hear Minister Jaishankar, when he was here this past week, that India stood on the side of respecting the UN Charter and its principles. Also, Prime Minister Modi, of course, has said that this is not an era of war. It's an era for democracy, negotiation, diplomacy. That having been said, the question is now, what is it these two great democracies, India and the United States, can do to change the dynamic of this rawism of Russia? The United States, as you know, has announced new sanctions on 1,000 different citizens of Russia, including the central banker.
Okay.
India has said that it's not so sure about sanctions, but the question is, if India is not sure about sanctions, what is it going to do to defend its principles? It seems to me, unless Putin can find support from China and India, that eventually his economy will do the same thing the Soviet Union economy did, and that was it will implode. What really bothers me, of course, is that this is going to be used as a pretext for the use of nuclear weapons.
All right.
It has already been threatened.
Ambassador Trigunit, I think one of the points that Raymond Vickery made, that by calling these now Russian territories, certainly Luhansk and Donetsk, Russia is duty-bound to defend if these places are attacked, if need be, as per Chapter 1 of their constitution, using nuclear weapons. Is that simply just a threat to the West to back off? Or do you see Putin actually resorting to the use of tactical nukes?
Well, that would be probably his last resort. But at the same time, today also, he spoke that he will defend. They are now their citizens, and he'll protect them and defend the territory with all its might and what is available at his disposal. Now, those are very clear words. Last time when he spoke about that I'm not bluffing. If need be, they will use it. I hope it never comes to that. But at the same time, I think that there has been no effort from any side at the moment. Both sides have been keeping up to the war engaging all the time and putting more fire into it, especially from the Western countries. So there is no chance at the moment to see that there will be any, I would say, the lowering of the temperatures for some near time to come. So Zelensky has said, not talk to Putin, and Putin is going nowhere right now.
So, Fred Wire, the best case scenario as far as Russia and Putin are concerned is we get these sort of a reserve or a catchment area of new military recruits that are coming in, stretch this war, attack Ukraine's physical infrastructure, whether it's electricity supply lines, water supply lines, so on and so forth, bleed the Ukrainians, and at the same time also turn off the taps as far as Europe is concerned, both on oil and gas, and hope that this is a chilling winter and populations in Europe turn against their governments for their stand on this war, because the cost of living crisis is too much to bear with. Is that his game plan all along?
It's all along. He's been making it up along. It's clear that Kremlin has gone through at least two previous phases of its vision for the war. So, but no, I do think, yes, it is mobilization, fill out the ranks, really get serious in terms of bombing things like the bridges of the Dnieper River and so on, and just completely go all in and force Ukraine to to capitulate. I believe that is, and I don't believe there is any scope for negotiations or you can't imagine a peace deal that could take place right now. One side or the other has to be defeated. Then the war will end.
One side or the other has to be defeated, Raymond Vickery. Does it look like that side that is likelier to be defeated is the Russian side? Because he's just doubling down. I mean, a defeat on the battlefield is something that no strongman will be able to survive. Saddam Hussein did not survive that. Muammar Gaddafi did not survive that. Why would Vladimir Putin survive a defeat on the battlefield? So he's going to fight till the end. He's going to fight till Russia wins.
Yes, I don't think that the way forward is by decisive military victory by either side. I think that Prime Minister Modi is exactly right. It's a time for democracy, diplomacy, and negotiation. The question is, in view of these latest imperialistic moves, trying to restore the greatness of Russia, I guess Putin thinks he's Putin the Great or something like that. How do you get to that point? The way in which the United States is trying to get to that point is, one, by giving the Ukrainians enough weapons to be able to defend themselves, and second, by going the sanctions route and trying to use economic measures to be able to force the change. Now, sure, Putin wants to bleed the West, but he's bleeding too, not only in deaths of his troops, but as you saw, there are tens of thousands of Russians of military age who are fleeing the country now. They don't want to be able to fight for this. So he's got problems. He thinks he's just going to bleed us.
Okay, we'll see how the story plays out. It has taken a decisive turn with the annexation of these 4 regions today. How may the world and Ukraine in particular respond to it? I guess the future course of the war depends on that. Thanks very much to all our guests. Mario Shakil with News Epicenter in a moment.
Can be a wild card entry. A possible name is Mallikarjun Kharge. What works for Mallikarjun Kharge? He's a veteran leader who knows the party, the Congress in and out. What goes against him is that he doesn't have any pan-India appeal, particularly in the Hindi belt. What works for him is that he has served as a minister during the UPA. He has been leading the Congress in Parliament since 2014. What goes against him again is that he is 80 years old and will not be really able to provide that necessary boost that the Congress needs at this point. The race to become the Congress Party's next president is between Mallikarjun Kharge and Shashi Tharoor. Kharge is the Gandhi camp's candidate for the post. Moreover, he has also got the backing of the members of the G23. His list of supporters also includes Digvijay Singh, who withdrew from the race this morning, as well as Rajasthan Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot, who was once upon a time front-runner for the top job. Remember, Gehlot backed out after apologizing to the Gandhis for the rebellion in Rajasthan over Pilot's possible elevation to the post of the Chief Minister. Today was the last day to file nominations to become the party president. The focus will now move towards October 8th, which is the last day to withdraw nominations. On October 17th, voting will take place, and on October 19th, the name of the new president of the Congress party will be announced. The momentum is with Mallikarjun Kharge, which begs the question, is this election a no contest?
Joining me shortly on the show is one of the contenders of this top job, Congress MP Shashi Tharoor. But first, here's what happened today.
It's the most expected twist in the race for Congress's next president. There won't be a Gandhi in the top post for the first time in more than 20 years, but the Parivar has made sure their man is in the running. Mallikarjun Kharge, leader of opposition in the Rajya Sabha and a through and through Gandhi loyalist, filed his nomination today.
मुझे जो सहकार मिला उनको, उसलिए उनका फिर एक बार मैं आभारी हूं। कांग्रेस पार्टी के जो उसूल हैं, जो आइडियोलॉजी है, उस आइडियोलॉजी के साथ मैं बचपन से जुड़ा हूं।
From the looks of it, Congress ka haath is with Kharge. Apart from getting the Gandhi's blessings, Kharge walked into the AICC with signatures of 30 proposers, who were some of the most prominent names in the party, including Rajasthan Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot, who was the first choice of the Gandhis for the top post up until his rebellion last week. Another proposer was Digvijay Singh, who up until the morning of the nomination had declared that he too was in the race.
उनसे मैंने पूछा था कि आप अगर फॉर्म भर रहे हो तो मैं नहीं भरूंगा। उनका इरादा है फॉर्म भरने का, तो मैंने कहा कि ठीक है, मैं आपका प्रस्तावक बनूंगा।
Kharge will be going up against Shashi Tharoor, a three-time member of parliament and a former union minister. Unlike Kharge, Tharoor wasn't flanked by the who's who of Congress when he filed his nomination papers.
I was not prepared for the extraordinarily enthusiastic collection of Congress workers. I have a vision for the Congress, for the internal reorganization of the Congress, which I will be sending to every one of the 9,100 and odd delegates.
A Gandhi loyalist versus a member of the G23. Are the odds stacked against Shashi Tharoor?
Kharge ji will be elected. In fact, my appeal is that she should be elected unanimously.
Okay, you want Mr. Tharoor to be withdrawing from the contest?
I think it would be in the fitness of things.
Is this a democratic election to lead a party that is going through its worst ever crisis, or just a friendly fight? And at the end of the day, will the next Congress chief simply be a proxy of the Gandhi family?
Now, because you have entered the contest for presidential elections of your party formally, what is making you contest? Because you, along with Manish Tiwari, Karti Chidambaram, have been demanding transparency in this entire election process. I've been following your tweets. You have been consistently raising